to offer them more freedom in their career, but more security in a financial sense. Unfortunately, because of Stan's many marital mishaps, he was badly in need of money and was happy to re-sign on a short separate contract again in 1940. Their last 4 films for the Hal Roach Studios were up there with the best of them. The 13-year career they'd established with Hal Roach came to a happy end in 1940 with Saps at Sea, a film in which they seemed full of renewed energy and enthusiasm. Their private lives too seemed to be more settled. Ollie had met and married Lucille Jones, the continuity girl from the Flying Deuces film, though his about-turn in affections from Viola Morse showed that he, like his movie persona, found it easy to fall deeply in and out of love on a whim. Stan, equally as whimsical, remarried his second wife Virginia Ruth, and they set up Laurel and Hardy Feature Productions. However, it was short-lived. By 1941, Laurel and Hardy Feature Productions was shut down. The huge amount of money that was needed to set up a film, for hiring studio space, technicians, sound equipment, the means of distribution, and the endless publicity to promote it, was never forthcoming. So Stan and Ollie reluctantly agreed to sign on with 20th Century Fox. Ollie was more eager than Stan to do this, as he was being chased by the IRS for back taxes, as well as being sued twice for non-payment of alimony by his alcoholic ex-wife, Myrtle. By now, the Eternal Clowns were beginning to show their age. As soon as they signed on for 20th Century Fox, their normal white-faced makeup was replaced by a natural flesh tone that exposed every wrinkle and line. Clowns tend to rely on the flexibility and agility of youth to pull off their most complicated of routines. Sadly, by the time they'd gone through the motions in 4 films for their new employers, Stan Laurel was pushing 55, and Oliver Hardy was hard on his heels at a not-so-sprightly 53.
Strict attention, all of you! The men who were to be shot this morning have escaped. Be sure all gates are closed and make a thorough search of the entire barracks. Whoever brings them back will be given a reward of 6 weeks' furlough. Go!
It seemed to Stan and Ollie that this was a good time to bring the curtain down and take their final bows. They'd never been happy making the longer films, as both felt it stretched their comedy and their characters too thinly, resulting in a watered-down version of Laurel and Hardy.
Come on, get to work! What do you think this is?
Within a year of taking enforced retirement, Stan had divorced Virginia Ruth Laurel again and married Ida Kiteva. His love life would have made the most complex film plot of all, and was ripe for a Laurel and Hardy makeover. But at last, he'd found someone to grow old with, a wife who would care for and cherish him, just as he'd always wanted. In 1947, British impresario Bernard Delfont, a sort of English version of Hal Roach, invited the boys over to tour the music halls of Great Britain with a revue show. Recalling the applause and the adulation from their last tour overseas, they both jumped at the chance to entertain the crowds again, especially ones who'd just spent 6 long years attempting to survive the grim realities of a Second World War. It also meant that Stan could pay his respects to the father that had encouraged his son to tread the boards of his theatre all those years ago. A.J. Jefferson was 85 years old and extremely proud that his son was returning to the music hall circuit that he himself had been so widely known for. Stan and Ollie received a standing ovation at a Royal Command performance, which was a show performed in London before the royal family, and then took the show to France, Belgium and Scandinavia, and it was equally as well received as in Stan Laurel's native land. When they returned to the United States of America, Stan found out that he was suffering from diabetes and was put on a special diet. Their return was tinged with more sadness when Ollie's mother, Emily Hardy, passed away at the grand old age of 88. Not long after, Stan's father, AJ, passed away too. A year later than Ollie's mother, but a year behind her in age. Stan and Ollie became, effectively, overgrown orphans. Both of them had lost one of their parents at an early age, and now they were united in grief for the passing of their surviving parent. Resigned to living out the rest of their lives with fading memories of their illustrious movie careers, Stan and Ollie were surprised to receive an offer of a French-Italian co-financed film that would shoot for a couple of months on the French Riviera. It was an offer they really couldn't refuse, but they'd soon regret accepting it. Upon arriving, they found there was no working script, and Stan had to quickly cobble something together with 2 American writers. To make matters worse, there was no common language, so communication was near impossible for everyone working on the film. And to top it all off, Stan suffered severe problems with his prostate, had an emergency operation, and his diabetes worsened considerably because of the trauma.
Now he can smoke it.
Maybe he doesn't smoke a pipe.
Well, whatever, he smokes it.
Well, you got to be careful about those things.
He had to have a permanent medical team on set with him at all times. Ollie's weight had ballooned to a massive 20 stone, whereas Stan's had shrunk to a skeletal 8 stone. Their physical form had always been a source of great amusement, but here it was somewhat grotesque and worrying to witness. The resulting film took 12 months to make and was titled Atoll K, and was a very pale imitation of their former glories. But again, the offers flooded in, and they accepted another tour of Great Britain's music halls in 1952. Stan felt sufficiently recovered to attempt it, and with their doting wives in tow, they set off for the British Isles with a totally new stage sketch called A Spot of Trouble. Just like their earlier tours, this one played to packed houses with standing ovations and ever-loving crowds of fans flocking to see their comic idols. It was such a success that a second tour took place in 1953, in which they began their dates in Ireland, as Ollie's